Howdy y'all, my name is Chuck's Clown, and I'm going to do a bit of a Clash breakdown. Obviously, last night the Clash at the Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium happened. The actual running was a 200 lap, 50-mile race. Their average speed, apparently, was 16 miles per hour. It started at 6 something, probably closer to 6:30, and ended at like 9:30. It was a long race, dude, and over half the laps that they made did not count, I'd say. I'd guess that they did more red flag laps, because obviously caution laps did not count for the Clash. But at one point around halftime, or just after halftime, Mike Joy had said that it was about 50-50 on green flag to caution laps. That's pretty ridiculous. It's just insane. The first half of this race was a good, fun, quick race. And honestly, if you just watched the first half of the race, I know a lot of people would be disappointed by the winner, who would have been Ty Gibbs. But you wouldn't have been disappointed with the product. This package is showing promises already. At a track where obviously the package matters everywhere, but this short track in particular, you can run a wide variety of packages and still be close, I'd say, to the next car up, just because of how short the track is. And I didn't hear many people saying this, I think it's more of a driver's track. If you are good at short tracks, if you are good at putting the car where you need it and want it to go, and know how to work your car through a turn, this will be, drivers like that will perform at this track. And they did. Ryan Preece is one of those guys, and he got the win. And it was a very impressive showing by him. And obviously good showing by Byron and Larson. You had that controversial fuel call. I think in a regular race with a regular pit lane, this call isn't made. But at a track where the pit crews aren't there, you're having to go completely out of your way to do a pit stop and everything. Just the way that this track was set up, and the fact that it's a non-points paying race, just set up perfectly for NASCAR to be like, okay, because competition pit stops aren't a thing. Yeah, sure, if you run out of fuel, but by the time Chase ran out of fuel, I think they made him serve his penalty, and then they brought everyone down to do theirs. If those two lost laps under the caution, maybe you give those back at that time, but I don't even know. The broadcast did an amazing job, for Fox at least, on the NASCAR. They did an amazing job for a Fox NASCAR broadcast in the 2020s. It wasn't the best I've seen. Obviously, no superhero caricatures made it better. I think the chemistry in the booth is finally getting somewhere. Clint Boyer did it. I don't mind him saying hot rods, but he had a really good analyst segment. When he was doing his job, he was doing it well. But then also the people in the booth were just able to sit there and talk and figure out what's going on and what they think should be done. And I think it was really good. I heard some people online compliment on just their like that they were doing better. But I mean, obviously they have a lot of rust. It is the first week back, and all of the racing was packed into one day. It was a long day for them, and I think it was a good day. They got to break off that rust, but I think come time for the Daytona 500, they will be ready, and it will be a good broadcast. Not great, not excellent, not the best Cup broadcast we've seen in 20 years, but a good, solid broadcast, one that won't annoy you too much. Will they get the audio mixing with the stands or with the fans right? That's really my only question remaining. I'm not too disappointed in how the broadcast went. I'm also super proud of Fox for sticking with NASCAR so long into the Masked Singer's scheduled run time. Especially because this was a race that was supposed to happen Sunday and it just kept getting moved back. I thought that was really, really cool of the Fox network. Obviously at the end when it got pushed to FS2, that really disappointed a lot of people. It made me upset too because of how close the race was to being done, but the race felt like it went on for about another hour afterwards, so I don't blame them too much. I mean, it was the second half of that race felt like a demolition derby, and I didn't mind it. You know, it was funny to watch. It was getting annoying how late it was running, but it was still entertaining. It wasn't something I was disappointed to flip on my TV and see, and I think part of that's also racing's back, and we haven't had a race. I mean, obviously we've had like IMSA and stuff, but we haven't had a full-on NASCAR race in a few months. So it's just good to see them on track again. So a lot of the criticisms have been blinded by, well, this is the only race we've seen so far this year. Now, if this were a race that happened in mid-June, or if this type of race happens with the All-Star race, you will see a lot more criticisms. Simply because at that point we will have expectations and we will expect better. Preece joined a historic list of drivers. I think Hamlin and Gordon as drivers who won the Clash before they won their first points-paying Cup race. But also with that, other drivers had a great recovery and ran up front for a good majority of this. Chase Briscoe was up front and leading and looked like he had the car to beat until late. Late in this, once we saw Blaney climb back up from being at the bottom, at the back, like nowhere to be seen, he climbed his way up, and he was clearly the fastest at that point. But it was a great drive by Preece to hold him back. And even though I'm a Blaney fan, I'm not going to condemn someone for doing their job and having a good drive. I like Preece. That was a good drive. And I was impressed with Briscoe, too, being able to hold back cars that were faster than him in the late run. I think Briscoe had the best early run car. But this race also went ahead and raised concerns I had for Team Penske with their qualifying speed. I fear it might not be there again, which sucks, but what are you going to do? Carson Hocevar ran up front for a majority of the day, too. Maybe not a majority, but a good chunk of the day. And alongside him were drivers like Zilich, who made him some enemies today. But that is a rough race to throw on someone. But I think it's also good that he gets this before he heads to Daytona. You know, really get an adequate feel of the car on another type of track. It lets you know the car more. And I was still impressed that he was running up front so early on. Bubba very early on was impressed, and then once all the Toyotas got separated, then it kind of became a mess. But there were a lot of good showings today from drivers who you wouldn't expect it. For a while, I was convinced that Shane Van Gisbergen was going to get his first oval win. Granted, it wouldn't count in the record books. When you look at like tracks won at, it might go in a different category, but still it's impressive. And we all knew that short tracks were what he was going to grab onto first. But at one point last year, it looked like it wasn't going to happen because last year was just a rough year for the short tracks. And the past couple of years have been, but last year especially. I'm interested to see how this package is going to transfer to a Bristol, or do they run the short track package at Iowa? Let's just say they do, in Iowa or a Martinsville. I think Martinsville is going to be the closest we see to this type of racing, and I think it was good racing. So I'm very excited for what they're going to be able to do. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on how this whole race went down. Like I said, I'm not entirely disappointed. If I had to give it a ranking, I would give the first half like a 8.5 out of 10. There were room for improvement. The broadcast is the best Fox broadcast I've seen in 20 years. Second half, I think I applaud NASCAR for letting them just throw on the wet weather tires at one point, and officiating was weird. And I might talk about that in another video. But the second half, I'd give it like a 2 out of 10. It was entertaining from a perspective, but at the same point, it wasn't the type of race that I go and seek out to watch. Just a demolition derby. But yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a good one.